What we saw happening in this scene is insane.
I saw what they did. It promised them that they would live forever. They sacrificed their children.
To see the entity himself actually bringing one of his demons back to life. And how the entity used Fatima and violated her body to impregnate her with a demon truly horrifies me. And it's crazy to say this, but it actually gets even worse because what's going on here proves the entity has been manipulating us this entire time. And we know this to be true because just think about this. How did we get to this point where the entity is bringing Smiley back to life to begin with? It all started with the old man chained up in the dungeon.
Did you go through the tree?
Yeah. That's when they get you.
This entire thing with the old man was just the entity playing the role he needed to in order to move Boyd into the position to kill Smiley. And we know that the entity planned for Boyd to kill Smiley because remember, Fatima was pregnant before Boyd killed Smiley. This is crazy. Because this is what shows us that we still have no idea of the level of deception that's really going on here, because the reason the entity did all of this is because he wanted to give the people hope that they could fight back against the monsters, hope that they could win, and then take it away and turn it into fear by literally impregnating Boyd's daughter-in-law with a demon. And even when you think about it, the only reason Boyd knew how to infect Smiley is because the entity himself, posing as a ballerina, showed him how to do it. Like this. And this literally happens in the same episode where Boyd kills Smiley. You can't make this up. And what this really tells us is we've barely even seen the entity's web of influence because this is crazy.
I heard the voices. They know you won't find her in time. They want you to know that she's afraid. They were laughing.
The entity already knew that Boyd would never be able to find Fatima before she gave birth to that demon in her belly. And he knew this because the entity also has the ability to travel in time, just like Julie. That's how he knew where to tell this monster to stand so that the cop would miss and shoot the girl in Colony House. Because remember, this is literally the same chick whose blood Fatima ended up drinking in order to feed her demonic baby. The same baby who just turned out to have been Smiley all along. Like, And this is how we know for a fact that the manipulation going on here is far worse than anything we've seen so far, because the entity being a story walker explains how the voices knew about Father Khatri burying that bag, because the entity has literally just been watching them this entire time. He was just invisible, so we couldn't see him. That's why the boy in white seemed to appear out of nowhere when Victor was about to cut down that tree.
He said that you would come, boy in white. He said that you would come, that I should wait.
The entity is always watching. He just makes himself invisible so that we don't see him. And it's also why Boyd couldn't hear what Julie was saying when she was in the dungeon. And it's obviously how the entity knew about Tabitha digging that hole in the basement. But this also means that the entity's scope of manipulation is far greater than we have ever realized. Cause even when you think about how we got to this situation with a Smiley to begin with, how did all of this start? And I'm not even talking about the old man this time. How did we get into the dungeon to begin with? It was, you guessed it, the boy in white.
You have to get inside. Over there. You'll be safe in there.
Did you go through the tree?
Yeah. That's when they get you.
All of this started with the boy. He was the one who sent Boyd into the dungeon so that he could infect him with the worms. And because we now know that the dungeon is in the same exact tunnels that the monsters are living in, it's almost like the entity who's controlling the monsters is also living with the monsters. What a surprise! And even at this point, we've barely even seen the level of the entity's manipulations. Like, even when Victor and his dad went down into those tunnels to look for that demonic puppet, they just happened to find it on the same exact table that also had Victor's mom's dress. Obviously, it's not a coincidence.
Oh God, it's your mother.
The entity knew that they would be coming, yet he chose not to kill Victor's dad. And that makes sense, because it was the entity himself who sent Tabitha to bring him into the town. Not to mention, we literally found out in the very next episode that the entity was in fact that same demonic puppet this entire time. And this is what shows us that we've barely even seen the strings that the entity is using to control us.
She was the one who had been chosen to free the children. So how did you get out?
Tabitha didn't get out because she went through the tree, or because she made it to the lighthouse, or because she's a reincarnation of Victor's mom, or whatever. No. It's none of that. She got out because it was specifically the boy who pushed her out of the town. And he did so because he literally knew he could drag her back in anytime that he wanted.
What happens if I refuse to play along?
You can't do this!
And this scene, this shows us just how amazing the entity really is at manipulating you. Because remember, Tabitha doesn't actually know how she made it out because the boy knocked her unconscious. So she wouldn't see the method he used to get her to Camden, Maine in the first place. The entity loves it. He loves manipulating people and using them like puppets. He moves them around like chess pieces to wherever it is that he needs them to be at a specific time. That's what the entity loves to do. He gives us hope and then he takes it away. Because that is what leads to the most amount of suffering, which we already know he literally feeds on. And of course, because he thinks it's funny.
There's something here. It wants to hurt us. It's laughing at you.
And this moment right here, this is exactly what I've been telling you. We literally see the entity laughing at Victor after the massacre because he tricked him into sending his own mother to the bottle tree, a place where he had already set up an ambush with a demon. That's why he was laughing in this scene. And it's literally the same as when the entity was laughing at Boyd for tricking him into setting them free. But the constant laughing is how we know he's not just torturing them to feed off of their pain. He's also doing it because he wants to entertain himself. And that is why he is truly terrifying.
There is no baby.
Yes, there is. It's just not yours.
Help! Help!
But one thing that has to be said is that the reason they're all being played like pawns is because they're all fools who completely refuse to share information. Like, take a look at Elgin. This guy, this guy really thought that listening to a demon that only he could see that was telling him, hey, you need to start kidnapping pregnant women, he genuinely thought that was a good idea. Like, and even the Dale situation with him being sent into a wall after going into a faraway tree is a great example of how stupid these people are. All of that could have been easily avoided just by Boyd telling everyone that he himself went into a tree once upon a time and he found himself in a magical dungeon where he found a man chained up on a wall being tortured by demons. And do you remember what Martin said to Boyd when he was in the dungeon?
Did you go through the tree?
Yeah. That's when they get you.
All Boyd had to do was tell everyone else exactly what Martin had told him. And Dale would still be alive. Because literally just by saying that, no one, absolutely nobody, would be going into that tree without some solid facts, including Dale himself, because he's afraid of being tortured by demons, just like literally 99.9999999% of the entire human population. It's almost like we've been using the fear of being tortured by demons to keep people from doing stupid things since literally the beginning of civilization. Now imagine how powerful that fear would be in a place like Fromland. These people, they make it so easy for the entity because they're so stupid.